Hello there, beautiful people. I'm Tracy Rigdon, and this is the Contrast Project Lounge podcast. In this episode, I'll be talking with investigative journalist from the Daily Dot, Miss Claire Goforth. Are y'all ready for this? Let's do it. Claire, thank you so much for joining me here on the podcast today. I want to talk about some of the things you've been working at since you've been at the Daily Dot for some time, but something you've been working on lately, which is called high res. Let's talk about that just a little bit. Tell us what high res is.
Well, thank you so much for having me on today, Tracy. It's a real thrill to be here with some of my fellow Jacksonvillans, going at you
Yeah.
almost live, right? Yeah, I've been out at the Daily Dot since 2019, doing sort of general assignment, political reporting. My specialty throughout that time was really working on extremism and conspiracy theories, hate groups, and that sort
Mm-hmm.
of thing. So in the past couple of months, I was itching for a new challenge, wanted to make things, take it to the next level. So I pitched to the higher ups the creation of an investigative reporting division called High Res, short
Mm-hmm.
for High Resolution, in which we take those stories that we're already doing at the Daily Dot as the hometown newspaper of the internet, and we go deeper. We take it to the next level. You're already seeing this breaking news coverage and the best of internet culture, the best, worst, and the weirdest, I like to say, in the Daily Dot on a regular basis. But with these
Mm-hmm.
stories, we're going to take a step back and we're going to spend a week or 2 weeks or even longer. We're going to spend money on public records. We're going to go to different locations and we're going to take you into a deep dive on how the internet affects the real world and how the real world affects the internet, and really how internet
Mm-hmm.
culture has become just part of culture. There was a time when we would think of
Right.
the internet as kind of separate from our daily lives, but that time has passed. Look at us here.
Yeah.
I'm sitting in one part of Jacksonville trying not to sweat. You're sitting in another part of Jacksonville trying not to sweat. Without the internet, that wouldn't be possible.
That's absolutely correct. Uh, you know, when we talk about you said the internet culture uh, infiltrating everyone's life. It really has, and I know there is the portion of the population that don't actually see that or experience it. But for those of us that are on the daily, well, like I say, the Daily Dot, uh, we can actually see that things are changing so fast that the information is coming at us fast and furious, and it really takes someone that is has their finger on the pulse of this information to disseminate everything for us and give us an unbiased opinion on what's going on. Let me ask you this question. uh, uh, like I said, the internet, it's home to a vast array of characters and trends and everything. How do you go about deciding what stories you're going to jump on and how you're going to cover them and how this is going to pertain to the new column high res?
That's a really good question and something that I think about really regularly. You know, there's so much going on the internet. It's a vast world with infinite
Mm-hmm.
possibilities. Just because something's happening there doesn't mean it rises to the level of needing to be covered. But once it starts to reach a
Right.
sort of critical mass, whether it's an influencer or it's a trend or it's a group that is really starting to have an impact online, possibly in person, that's when I'm going to start to consider whether or not this is something worth covering, particularly if it hasn't been covered already. Or if it has been covered, maybe it hasn't been covered in this unique way. or maybe there's some breaking news about it that we can get to first. These are
Hmm.
all factors I'm going to consider when I'm deciding what stories to choose. And it can be really difficult. I mean, there's a lot of really great outlets out there, and they're all doing incredible work. Not all of them. Some of
Sure.
them are doing very bad work. But
Some
the ones
better
that
than
I
others.
consider peers, some better than others, the ones I
Yeah.
consider peers are doing some really good work. And, there's room for everybody at the table, I think. I just I want to serve the public with some of the journalism. I want to inform, I want to engage, and not like entertaining isn't really, I hope that the writing is good. I hope that the craft is there, and that so people can read it and, walk away with like a feeling. But, I just want to report on what matters and expose the creepy crawlies that live in the shadows, and look behind those creepy crawlies to the big fat cats who are funding them, so that people can have a better sense of what's going on online and how it's affecting our everyday lives.
Absolutely, absolutely. Uh, the Daily Dot has experienced substantial growth, I've noticed over the years, in covering uh, internet culture, uh, technology, politics, conspiracy theories, and the like. But it's currently at 23 million unique views, which is quite substantial uh, in its own right when it comes to internet news or information type sites. How how do you see the role of online media um, in shaping the narratives when we look at stuff that's going on currently in the news, or a lot of people rely on social media for their news bites. How do you see the Daily Dot as coming in and being a voice of reason in some of the insanity that we are seeing?
You touched on this earlier, Tracy, when you said having your finger on the pulse of internet culture.
Yeah, yeah,
And that's
yeah,
really
yeah.
what we do, and what we really pioneered it. I mean, just last July we were named the fastest growing online media company in the nation,
Mm-hmm.
and we cracked into the top 50 as far as web traffic for online media. And I think that today, more and more, as much as I love local print and I love local journalism, online journalism has filled a lot of that void. And for us, we try to be responsible, and we try to be careful about our facts, just as if we were going to paper press. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
there's this whole weird world of certain outlets that they don't really have any allegiance to the facts. They are pushing a narrative. They really don't. They don't. Pardon. Can I cuss a little bit?
Yeah, yeah,
They
yeah,
don't
yeah,
give a
yeah.
crap who they hurt. They don't give a crap if they're lying or not, as long as it, you know, gets them some traffic, it fulfills some confirmation bias. And we stand above that. We watch it going down, and, try to be sort of a balance for all of the crap that you see online. And, really give our readers the salt and the sweet. One of the things that
Right,
I read
right.
this study not long ago that I found really fascinating about how American media is so incredibly negative. Whereas if you compare it to like European media, they have a lot more positive stories in the mix. I think that there's a hunger that people have to get stories that aren't just like the gloom and the doom, but also the stories that are like, well, look at this weird trend, and this is really funny, and this is happening, and this person is doing something really, really cool online, and
Yeah,
and at the same time, then also be like, look at this dirty dealer, look at this politician who used to
yeah.
do all this nasty stuff. And I mean,
Right.
if that answers your question, I mean, I just feel like online media is the new media.
Oh, yeah. I do agree. And for the longest time, I had always been I've been pro print media and support local journalists and that kind of thing. And I know in Jacksonville, and Jacksonville's market, where Times Union has had this problem with letting go a lot of their journalists and letting go a lot of their staff, and they downsized everything. And across the country, a lot of during the pandemic, by the way, a lot of alternative magazines basically had to shutter their operations, and Folio being one of those. Sam had to shut down the operation because basically he was unable to sell print advertising. And I know he was getting tired. The magazine went for 33 years under his tutelage, and that's a pretty good thing. Uh, and I'm glad that it was rebirthed. John Phillips and his group purchased and gave it a rebirth and breathed new life into it. And I'll be honest with you, the print version of the new folio actually looks pretty darn good, and I have no problems with it. And they do have a young and vibrant staff that writes for them. Um, how do you see, as far as that goes, when we're talking about print media and we're talking about online media, let's interject the spectrum of alternative media outlets. And I would say that the Daily Dot would be considered maybe alternative in the online spectrum, but how do you see uh, people in the alternative media realm coming up and becoming more mainstream when all the others have failed?
Yeah, that is a very good question. And I agree with you 100%. One of the things that I love about the Daily Dot is that it does have that alt weekly vibe. The Folio Weekly gave me my start
Mm-hmm.
as a journalist, and being the editor there was one of the biggest thrills and honors of my career. But there's no denying the trend. If you look at the Association of Alternative News Media, there's so many who have closed in just the past 5 years. And there's a
Yeah.
few reasons
Yeah.
for that. It's the, print media, the revenue's just been drying up, right? Why are you going to pay however many $100 for an ad that gets seen by, 20,000 people when you can pay a couple of bucks on Facebook and get it seen by the same number? Not now, that's not a
Yeah. Yeah.
guarantee for sure, but Facebook
Right.
and Google and the others, they have really sapped up a lot of that revenue. And one of the things that I've often thought that the alt weeklies could do is basically take the kind of model that we have. And, there's no reason why you can't drive significant web traffic as a regional paper. You just have to know
Mm-hmm.
what kind of stories work. You have to pay really close attention to your analytics and figure out how you can actually make a profit on the internet. That is one option that I think is a good one. But the other one that I've seen across the country, several alt weeklies have either been propped up by nonprofits or they've turned into nonprofits, and some have just been formed as nonprofits because there's an
Yeah.
appetite for independent journalism. I mean, I love the Florida Times Union, and I mean, I don't blame anyone at the paper. It's their evil corporate overlords
Right.
who are
Right.
responsible
Right.
for all the
Right.
cuts. Um,
Right. Right.
but why not have more than one voice at the table, more than one paper of record, if you will? It benefits us all, and we're just losing all of these local voices. I'm a national reporter now. I can only report on so much that's going on in Jacksonville because my audience is national. But because of
National.
that, there's
Yeah.
just fewer eyeballs on what's going on at JSO and what's going on at City Hall.
Right.
Unless it's
Right.
something that's so big that it gets into the larger markets, then it gives the opportunity for corrupt people to just run amok unchecked. So I think
Right.
that if alternative media and also regular media like newspapers, if they would do more of like make a concentrated effort to do the kind of stories that drive significant web traffic that are still newsworthy, then they could make a living, not just be surviving by the revenue from print, which is, harder and harder every year.
Right, right. And you're absolutely correct. I get it where you've now stepped up to the national reporting scene, and sometimes you have to step away from everything Jacksonville. Uh, I get that, and Jacksonville has recently stepped into the national scene with the fact that we've elected uh, the first female mayor and the first Democratic mayor in decades, and that is a national story. However, it has been overlooked in a lot of the media. But I don't fault the media for that because there are other things nationally that are very concerning. And I'm going to step right over here and ask you about your concerns about a couple of things that are going on nationally right now. And I'm certain that you and your team are talking about it. Number one, this whole crazy shit with Elon Musk completely gutting Twitter and calling it X. Number two, I would ask your opinion, and I said I was never going to devote any specific episode to the topic of Jason Aldean and that crap that he's released, but I'm going to throw it out there and see if you have a comment or no comment, and either way, it's your choice.
All right, so Elon Musk and Jason Aldean. Every day it seems as though Elon Musk is disabusing us of our preconceived idea that he is some kind of genius. The stuff that he's doing with Twitter, I mean, he's just let the floodgates open. You scroll through that timeline, and it's just the worst of the worst, and they're piled up to the top because if you got, what is it, Ben with NBC calls it the $8 right? For the $8 you can pay to get verified so that you appear at
I
the
know,
top
right?
of the timeline.
I ain't paying.
I
I ain't
mean, it
paying that
used
shit.
Oh my God, no. It's almost like a scarlet letter now, in some circles. Um, but it really is. But Twitter used to be for years, journalists like when if something was breaking
Yes.
news, you would maybe Google it, but then you go to Twitter and you're going to see what's actually happening real time. I've broken
Yep.
stories via tweet, and you see that thing spread like wildfire. And those days are gone.
Yep.
Instead, now you just
Yep.
see like Nazis, literally Nazis, and trolls and people who are just probably grifters that are just all at the top of the timeline. And the same thing in the comments because of the way that prioritization works. And now he's
Well, I
calling it
used to.
X. I mean, it's so wild.
It's stupid. It's stupid. He has a pre-obsession with the letter X. But I will say, like you were mentioning about Twitter used to be, a place for journalists to report stuff, and it really was. It really was. I remember years ago,
Mm-hmm.
I've had TweetDeck. I used to use TweetDeck and follow
Mm-hmm.
several uh, journalists and the people that had, like we said earlier, their finger on the pulse. But I used to follow a lot of journalists with my tweet deck. I would fill it up and I would look at it and I would, uh, but then he tried to monetize the tweet deck and close it down, and now he's putting this whole X thing on it, and I, the guy, I don't know what the hell he's thinking.
Yeah, I mean, why are you going to get rid of an established brand that is recognizable, unique, and has existed for what is Twitter 14 years old? I mean, you can certainly change things, but Mark
Yeah,
Zuckerberg wasn't that much of a fool when he decided to create Meta. He didn't just say, well, Facebook's now called Meta. He was like, now we have a parent
no,
company. And that's pretty
that's right.
typical. But
That's
Elon
right.
Musk, like, he just loves the letter X. What is that? Does he like have some stock in that old show, The X Factor or something? I don't know, man. What is he doing? And I just feel like every day it's just like he wakes up and he's like, you know what? I'm going to do this crazy thing today. And nobody
And
can stop him. I mean, it's his
I know,
platform.
well, that's a good way to throw away $44 billion worth of borrowed money. But I will say this: I don't know
Right?
if you've read. I know he borrowed all that money, but I will say this: the people that designed the Twitter logo. I don't know if you've read this or not, but the people that designed it,
Mm.
every single piece of the Twitter logo was designed around circles. Every piece of it. They drew hundreds of circles on these. There was three guys. They drew all these circles and then they colored in the blocks and came up with this bird. And it's all circles. And their whole logic behind it was connection. The circles connect everybody. I know I know it sounds kind of far fetched, but that's exactly how it was put together.
Ah, no, I mean, I've been in communications for a long time, and that is the kind of thing where your brain doesn't perceive it, but something in there, like you can recognize that it's got more depth to it than, I mean, he basically just picked a font out of whatever the Microsoft Word fonts were and was like, this is our new logo, in my opinion. I think it looks
Uh,
a really, it's embarrassing. It's like that meme, graphic design is my passion. Okay, like who told him that was a good idea? This man needs people to tell him no.
I'm a graphic designer, but I also have a pro account on Canva.
I mean, I got paintbrush too, Elon. I think I could design a new logo for you.
Yeah, right. I know. That's crazy. But if you think about it, if you think about these guys that designed the Twitter logo, and they actually said it was just designed by a bunch of circles. Everything in the bird comes from the edge of a circle, and then they just colored in the
Hmm.
spots and made the bird. And I I think about that, and then I think about how many years that it has become uh, uh, it's become a household fixture. Even people that don't use Twitter can look at that picture. I would say most people can look at that picture and they know that that means, oh, that's that Twitter online thing. It's automatic brand recognition. And he is taking automatic brand recognition, regardless of what he thinks about the app or the platform, whatever he thinks about it. He's taking that brand recognition and throwing it in the toilet.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, does he want to declare bankruptcy for Twitter? I mean, it's looking more and more like that every day. Has there been a single decision that he made that made Twitter more profitable, more respected? Isn't ad revenue
No,
down like 50%? And then he
no,
recently decided to start paying a very random group of people a portion of ad revenue based on what people see in their replies. Um, so then he's given away more money. And I just don't understand how this man is a business genius making these type of decisions. It doesn't
he's
doesn't make
tank.
sense to me.
And I see all the posts as I know you probably do too. I see all the posts on Twitter and on Threads and everywhere else where people are saying, well, all these liberal whinies are complaining about Twitter doing this and doing that and all that. But I'm telling you, from a business standpoint, it was just a moron move. Uh, if you've got a branded product and you go in there and buy it and you spend $44 billion to buy it, you don't go in there and gut it the way he has. He gutted it. I don't care if he instituted all these stop gaps and wanted to charge people for their check marks and wanted to start banning certain speech or whatever. The thing that right at the top of my mind is he took a corporation that arguably was losing money. It wasn't making money, but it wasn't intended to in the first place. And it became just like you said. A lot of journalists used it throughout the years to get information from other journalists, and a lot of people used it during times of tragedy to get information out to the rest of the world. And now he's trashing it. He wants to kill the brand. He's let go thousands of employees, and amongst those employees have also been some of the top engineers, even including some of the security people. And now the platform has just gone to crap, and he's put this thing on there, and now they're saying that Microsoft Meta and Microsoft also have uh, trademark holdings on those different versions of the X. So
Mhm.
even though he may have used something that is going to pass the muster when it comes to the courts, he may or may not. Some judge may come in there and say, "Hey, dude, you didn't check on this first, and now you started, tearing down the Twitter wall and pulling the bird down and putting this X on it. And the fact of the matter is, you can't
Mm.
do that because you're going to have to pay for it."
Yeah, I mean, he took a sink into Twitter when he showed up that first day, right? And since then, all he's
Yeah.
done is take things away, take things out of Twitter. I mean, and then it's just like, do you have a lawyer? Like a single lawyer or a friend to be like, dude, maybe don't hit that vape so hard before you make a decision about your entire brand. I don't know.
it it's like there are no people in his entourage, there's no people in his little tribe that say no, sir.
Right. I mean, don't we all rely on our friends to be like, you're acting a fool? I don't think there's a single person in his life that he that he trusts enough to tell him when he's acting a fool, or he
Well,
listens to.
one of the things I see on a lot of the social media posts, I see where a lot of people are saying he's a genius, he's got all this, and he's not. He started out with millions of dollars. His parents had shitloads of money, and he invested in buying companies and buying other people's stuff. He never invented Tesla. He never invented SpaceX. He never invented AI. He never invented any of this stuff. He just took a whole shitload of money and bought this stuff, and then ran from there. And he never. Oh, I know this is going to sound like a smartass, but he never grew up in a small town.
No, he did not. I am definitely from a small town, and I don't believe that Mr. Musk can make that same claim.
No, 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 no. He came from South African ruby miners. I mean,
I thought it
come
was
on, dude.
emeralds. Yeah,
Emeralds, rubies, yeah,
yeah.
yeah. They dug stones out of the ground with slave labor. So, I
What
mean,
are gemstones I don't own for 100, Alex?
that's where he comes from. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Hey, hey, you want to move on to the next
I mean,
topic
he's
of
just some rich dude. Yeah,
he
yeah,
is
yeah,
a
let's do
rich
it.
dude. He's a rich dude that
Yeah.
has too much time on his hands, and he sleeps by himself, and every now and again he gets a hold of some Hollywood actress, and they have a romp in the hay, and then he gives her $1 million to shut the hell up, and then he moves on about his business and jumps on his little jet that some guy on Twitter, now on Threads, follows his damn jet
Hmm.
everywhere he goes.
Much to
Ah,
Elon Musk's chagrin.
the Elon Musk
Mr.
jet.
Free Speech
I've been follow
himself.
I've been
Yeah.
following that thing for a long time. It's hilarious. I think it's hilarious. Anyway, all right.
Man, I wish
Anyway,
that kid
anyway.
would follow Ron DeSantis. Anyway.
I know. Oh God, don't get me started. That dude. Yeah. Hey, hey, but Ron thinks that slaves. They learned a whole bunch of usable skills in the marketplace.
Yeah, right. I don't think that that if you were actually a student of history, Governor DeSantis, that you would make that claim because a lot of the farming techniques that they learned, they taught white people. So a lot of the cooking techniques that are white Southern cooking are actually African cooking techniques that have
Uh,
evolved over the years. So, if you wanted to be a true student of history and impart some of that knowledge to the next generation, you'd be
I
teaching those
know.
kids about the contribution that we owe to the African
Uh,
people. But that's just my
no,
my little rant. Sorry, we were going to move on to the next topic.
yeah, but no shit. But on the same token, we could also go ahead and talk about this whole Jason Aldean thing and the fact that
Hmm.
I had made mention online the other day, several days ago, that I'm not a big country music fan, and I don't mind saying that to anybody. I don't care. I grew up in a country music family, and I've played in country music bands. I've played hired gun as a drummer over the years for a lot of different kinds of bands, and I'd never been a real big fan of especially the new country music. And when I say the new country music, I say that really about a lot of new genres. I think that a lot of these pop stars, these pop country stars, and a lot of other people, they they buy into this Hollywood or Nashville thing, and they have songwriters that write them a bunch of crap that just sells albums. And of course, right now, nobody's really selling albums; they're selling downloads. Um, and for the most part, artists that are making downloads are making pennies on the dollar for the most part. Now I know that
Hmm.
people like Jason Aldean, he did not come from a small town, and he does not live in a small town, and he did not write that song. And he is currently sitting on about 11 albums and roughly $80 million net worth. So, uh, frankly, in my opinion, he is not someone to be talking all this shit that he is. However, he didn't write the song, and the people that wrote that song actually wrote the song that he put out several years ago that said, I left a small town because they suck. The same people that wrote this song. So, what do you think about that?
Yeah. I mean, they're just checking some boxes to try to put together these different elements to create a song that will get radio play. I do
Sure.
listen to country music. I'm a big fan of
Yeah.
country music. Um,
God
and
bless you.
while he may not have written that song, he certainly had some creative decision making over that video.
Mm-hmm.
I would imagine. I mean, I'm not some music
I
industry
doubt it.
insider or anything, but,
I
you
doubt
know,
it. I doubt
if
it.
you're gonna
I doubt it.
no say whatsoever, no final
Uh,
approval.
no, I doubt it. I think he's just on the gravy train. To be honest with you, he's done it before, and he's done it album after album. He is one of those guys from Nashville and from Hollywood and other genres
Hmm.
that typically are they can elementary, throw out some guitar chords, and some of them can sing
Hmm.
halfway decent, and some of them have a little bit of appeal, whether it be sexual appeal or they appeal to the ladies in the crowd with the cowboy hats and the pink cowboy boots and all that shit. Uh, but he doesn't write songs.
Hmm.
He is told to come to the meeting table. His record people say, "Hey, we got this song. We think it's going to do well. We'd like you to sing it, and we're going to do a video, and we're going to spend about $1 million, maybe more, maybe less, to produce this video for you, and it's going to make you real. It's going to make you look really fucking cool, and some of these other people are going to love your stuff and they're going to buy it. And some people are going to hate it. But we think the people that, fall in line with your narrow minded message that we're trying to promote is going to sell a shitload of albums. And by the end of the day, your $80 million net worth is going to be about 90 million. What do you say, dude? You're going to show up in the studio?
I mean, I would hope he'd have more integrity than that, and that any artist
Uh,
would, you know. But let's be real, he's
no,
not writing his
no,
songs. He's just a
no, no,
canned country,
no,
right? He's no Miranda
no,
Lambert. He's no Brad Paisley. He's no Garth
no,
Brooks. Like he's a
no.
guy. I went to when Leonard Skinner did their farewell show, and he was on the
Mm-hmm.
lineup, and I saw him. Like he could play a stadium, which is not easy.
Yeah.
But you know, nothing against the man as a singer. I really haven't heard him sing a cappella, which is the easier way to judge it. But I do think that, you know, I think the artist has some responsibility when you're making a video like that to not say,
Well,
hey,
yeah.
let's do this at the scene of a lynching and then include
He
footage of like protests for people's rights. I mean, it's just really, it's, ugh.
It was in poor taste. It was in poor taste. And to be honest with you, Claire, a lot of that video footage was taken in different countries. A lot of the video footage was taken in
I know, I
Canada
saw that.
protest, and some of it was actually taken
In
in
Europe.
war-torn Ukraine and Germany. And
Hmm.
they're conflating that same type of anger from the Ukraine and Germany protests to a Black Lives Matter protest, and I think that is total bullshit. They bought stock footage, as I can do any day of the week. I can go buy stock footage anywhere and put
Hmm.
it on my videos, and that's what they did. And I think that
Yeah.
was a cheap shot. I think it was a cheap shot.
And I mean, wouldn't we like to see people in small towns agitating for civil rights? And haven't we seen that? We certainly have. But, you know, if you want to talk about what's going on in a small town, you could go back to my hometown, Paw Paw, West Virginia, and you can see the people ravaged by opioids. You can see the
Yeah.
poverty and the suffering. And, you know, Eric Church could probably write a good song about that, but maybe Jason Aldean isn't the man for that particular job to really show
No,
people's suffering and
no.
the struggles that people have. Like, I understand that music is entertainment, but the music that resonates is the music that really speaks to something that is maybe an injustice or just a pain or just something that speaks to your soul, whether or not it's rap or hip
Right,
hop or country or rock and
right,
roll.
right, 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 right. Uh, I would say in closing here, Claire, I would say that I was not raised in a small town. I was raised in Jacksonville, Florida. I was raised on the outside of Jacksonville, and I would say at the time that I was raised, it was a small town. It was before it was consolidated because I, frankly, I'm old as shit, and I lived out in the woods. And when I was growing up, we did have a small town mentality. And I currently live
Mm-hmm.
in Middleburg, and it's a little different here, but kind of, sort of, country folks have their own way of thinking. But when I was raised in the north side of Jacksonville by a father that busted his ass 100 hours a week working at the paper mill. My mother stayed home as a stay-at-home wife, raised my sister and I, and we were raised with certain values too. And I would say that they were small town values, although it wasn't a small town; it was a suburb. But it was a small house, and it was a tight house, and it was a tightly run house. And my dad uh, taught me how to be a gentleman and how to be gentle with other people and how to understand the differences in the people that lived in our neighborhoods. I remember in my elementary school when I first saw another black person. I remember I was in first grade, and the first black person I ever met in my entire life was in first grade. I had never seen another black person. And that person, his name was Eugene McMillan, and I remember him to this day. I'm 62 years old, and we were friends for years and years and years. Um, it it changed me going through the 1960s in the race riots and all this other stuff. And I remember that my father and my mother shielded us from a lot of that. But I do remember seeing a lot of the hatred coming out on the news outlets after I became of age and thinking back to, well, God, I didn't see any of that. I didn't see that in my neighborhood. Why did I not see that? Why did I not hear of that? It's because my parents shielded us. And that takes me to the point where uh, I think we're having these issues in the state of Florida and countrywide, nationwide, where they're trying to whitewash a lot of history in our schools. And I think it really is a shame that I went through my entire elementary school years, and that was 6 years, first through sixth grade, that I only had one black friend. He was the only black student, and I only had one black teacher. She was my fifth grade teacher, and her name was Mrs. Floyd. And at the age of 62, I still remember those people, and they're dear to my heart. And why is it a lot of people aren't talking about that?
People don't like to talk about uncomfortable truths. Growing up in middle of nowhere, West Virginia, in a town of 500, very
Yeah.
homogenous, not very many black people. I think there was one Jewish family, very few Latinos. No, I don't remember there being any Asian people in my hometown. And it's easy for some people, to become fearful or grow up fearful of the other and not have that empathy
Mm-hmm.
for their common man,
Yeah.
to sort of silo themselves into their little group because it feels comfortable and it feels, safe. And but when we're our best selves, I think we're having empathy for everyone else.
Right.
It sounds sort of cheesy, but it's the truth, and it's really disturbing to me to have lived through you know the past several years and just watching these divisions and how they're festering and growing. And it's like, white people, many white people, not all white people, but many white people are putting themselves back into this corner and being like, you know, it's us against the world. And they're shunning LGBT people, and they're, saying and horrible things about those of other races and publicly. And it's bad enough in private, but when you feel so emboldened that you're going on the internet and you're saying these things, I mean, the things that we saw the former president say at times, the things we've seen some of our other leaders say, or even just allude to, but obviously, the dog whistles, it's really distressing. But then, I spent a week recently in middle of nowhereville, Weewahitchka, Florida, and you talk to people one on one, and they're so kind and welcoming. And if you
Mm-hmm.
go to my hometown, you'd have the same experience. It's like, but when we get into our little groups, and we're like, well, we're the white Christians, right? And we're like, we know what the right God is. I mean, then what are you? You're just hating other people, and you're doing it because
Yeah.
you're afraid, and because sometimes you're small, you're small minded. And I know a lot of people in small towns who are wonderful and don't think like that at all. And it really just like when someone like Jason Aldean comes out with that song and it's like, you don't see that in a small town, it kind of pisses me off because you see a lot of really wonderful things in small towns too. Jacksonville is a great freaking place to live. I love it here. I love the people. But everywhere you go, you're going to find good people. Everywhere you go, you're going
Yeah.
to find bad
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
You're just going to
Yeah.
find people. Um, and but seeing this, like the way the hate grows in certain, online is a bad place for it. And this spilling out into the real world, including here, we've seen some pretty awful stuff put up on buildings and flying over the stadium in Jacksonville.
Right. Right.
And
Right. I
it's like,
know.
man, these people feel, Nazis feel emboldened, that bold, like that they feel like they're that accepted. Like, we got to roll the clock back on this, okay?
I know. I know. I know. Yeah. Well, I tell you what, Claire. I have had an exceptionally wonderful time talking to you about these topics and talking about the Daily Dot and the things that you have going down, over there. Uh, uh, Before we go, are there some things that we should know to look for that you may be covering in the very near future?
Well, I can't scoop myself, but I do have some
I know,
stories
I know,
cooking that I think
I
everyone will
know.
be very interested in. And we published a story today. I went to the home of the internet personality known as Cat Turd and spent a week
I saw
there.
that.
If you
I
don't know
saw
who he
that.
is, he's a big MAGA guy, millions of followers, really influential. And then he's like basically this invisible person in his own small town, which is kind of like, man, you love the internet fame, but you don't really like people in real life. I don't know. So just expect to see some more big scoops. And just Governor DeSantis, I've got some plans for covering your administration as well. So you'll be hearing from me about what's going on in Florida and the rest of the country.
It sounds great. Sounds great. And you know what, Claire? I'll provide all the links in the comments and sections and descriptions of the podcast for everybody to find you and see what you're talking about. And we will definitely. You're welcome anytime here on the podcast.
Thanks, Tracy. It's been an honor to be on here, and thank you for having me.
Absolutely. See ya. I'd like to thank all my friends, fans, and followers on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. All of you. And those of you who are not already following us, please like, share, comment. And on the YouTube channel, like, share, comment, and smash the subscribe button so that you get all the new episodes. Don't forget to ring that bell. You get notifications. And listen, once again, I want to thank each and every single one of you. Your support means the world to me, and I certainly do appreciate it. Again, thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, in my closing thoughts, I just want to impart to you, for those of you who really want to read some quality investigative journalism, you have to go over to the Daily Dot and check it out. I'll have the links provided for you. And as always, take care of yourselves and each other. Until next time, peace.